Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll look at probably the most misunderstood feature on the BR1600, the built-in rhythm section, and specifically the drums. There are 6 ways you can add drums to a project on the Boss BR1600. Using loop phrases to sequence audio samples, using a mic'd up acoustic drum kit, an electronic kit recorded directly into the BR1600, syncing the BR1600 to a computer and using a virtual instrument like EZdrummer, using an external MIDI drum machine synchronized to the BR1600, and the option we'll look at in depth today using the built-in rhythm editor. On the BR1600, track 15 and 16 can be used as dedicated drum tracks. You can enable this either when you create a new song by selecting Use Drums, or by pressing the Track Type Select button and selecting the Drums option for track 15 and 16. There are 9 different drum kits available, spanning various musical styles. Each is made up of 18 different PCM drum samples. There are 2 modes for using the rhythm editor on the BR1600, which includes bass and loop phrases as well as the drums. This is pattern mode and arrangement mode. You can switch between the two using the arrangement button. If the button is lit, then you're in arrangement mode. Unlit is pattern mode. In pattern mode, the BR1600 will loop the currently selected pattern continuously. This is a great way to start a song. Simply pick a drum pattern close to the feel that you want for the song, adjust the tempo, and record along with the drum pattern as backing. You can create a more complex drum pattern later if you want, using the arrangement mode. In arrangement mode, patterns are arranged into a sequence to add rhythmic variations throughout the song. In addition, arrangements can also use tempo and beat maps to vary both the tempo and time signature during the song. The tempo setting is not shared between pattern mode and arrangement mode and is set independently. This is also the case for the drum kit selection and time signature. The BR1600 ships with 600 preset drum patterns made up of sets which include intros, verses, fills, and endings. These cannot be overwritten. In addition, there is also 999 user drum patterns and 999 song patterns. Preset and user patterns are available for use on any song, while song patterns are specific to the song on which they were created. The BR1600 also contains 100 preset arrangements and 10 user and 10 song arrangements. Pattern mode is enabled when the arrangement light is off. Enable drums for track 15 and 16 if they aren't already, using the Track Type Select button. The drum light indicates that they are currently active. Pressing the track 15 and 16 arm button will cycle through the 3 different modes for playing drum patterns. When unlit, no drum sounds will be played even when you press play. When flashing, the currently selected drum pattern will sound only in play and record mode. And when it's on, the currently selected drum pattern will sound even when the BR1600 is in stop mode. Push the track arm button until it stays lit and raise the track 15 and 16 fader. You should hear a drum pattern playing. Press the Rhythm Edit button. Move the cursor to highlight the drum pattern prefix. You can select between P for preset, U for user, and S for song, using the value dial. Move the cursor to highlight the pattern number and use the time value wheel to scroll through the available patterns one by one. The text below is a brief description of the pattern and an indication as to whether it's an intro, verse, fill, or ending. You can also use value dial 4 to make larger jumps through the patterns. Save the song to store the selected drum pattern. With a drum pattern playing, press the Rhythm Edit button and the Setup option. Move the cursor to the drum kit field and use the time value wheel to scroll through the available kits. Press the Enter or Exit button when you've finished. Save the song to store any changes you made to the kit selection. Even though each drum, bass and loop phrase pattern has its own time signature, they will be modified to conform to the current time signature set in pattern mode. This is known as the universal beat setting. It allows for patterns with different time signatures across the drums, bass and loops to be played together. The universal beat for pattern mode is set by pressing the F1 setup button from the Rhythm Edit screen. Move the cursor to the beat setting and adjust the time signature. Press Exit to return to the edit screen and save the song to keep any changes. Any drum, bass or loop phrase pattern that differs from the universal beat setting is modified as follows. If a 3/4 pattern is played with the universal beat set to 4/4, then the fourth beat will not play and a rest is inserted. If a 5/4 pattern was played, the fifth beat would be left out. If the universal beat was set to 5/4 and a 4/4 pattern played, then the fifth beat would be a rest. A 3/4 pattern would include 2 rests to make up the difference. The universal beat setting has no effect when using arrangement mode, as all arrangements follow a beat map. With the track 15 and 16 arm button lit and a pattern playing, highlight the tempo field and use the time value wheel to adjust the tempo. The tempo can be set anywhere from 25 to 250 BPM. You can also use tap tempo to set the tempo, even when you're not in the Rhythm Edit screen. Hit the tap tempo button 4 times or more to set a tempo. There are 3 ways to create a drum pattern on the BR1600: real-time, step recording mode, or by importing a standard MIDI file. Real-time recording allows you to add individual drum hits one at a time while the pattern is being looped. Each new part is added to the previous, gradually building up the pattern. Step recording uses drums entered onto a grid representing the pattern measures, allowing you to add and adjust the drums using a graphical interface. Importing a MIDI file allows you to bring an entire song into the BR1600 as a single pattern. This is convenient if you are doing a cover song and have a MIDI file for it. You can add drums in real time using either a MIDI keyboard or by using the track arm buttons. To use a MIDI keyboard, it just needs to be plugged into the MIDI in port at the rear of the BR1600. If the keyboard is velocity sensitive, then you can vary the volume of the drums as you input them. Each drum sound is also assigned to the track arm buttons located below each of the track faders. Anytime you are in the drum edit screen, the track arm buttons are live, so you can audition any of the current drum sounds. For track 1 through 6, use the track button while holding the V-track button to access the second drum sound. The mapping of the MIDI notes to drum sound is shown on page 153 of the owner's manual. Unfortunately, it's wrong. This is how it should look. This is how the drum sounds are arranged when viewed on a piano keyboard. To create a new pattern from scratch in pattern mode, press the Edit button. Press the F4 Edit button under the Drum tab. Highlight the pattern prefix and select either user or song. Highlight the number and choose an empty pattern. Set the appropriate time signature and the number of measures you want for the new pattern, and press the F1 real-time option. The real-time standby screen appears and the metronome will start. Move the cursor to highlight the BPM and use the time value wheel to adjust the tempo if you need to. This is purely for playback and recording though, as tempo information is not saved along with the pattern. You can also use the tap tempo button. Adjust the metronome volume if you need to using the time value wheel. You can also use the track faders to vary the velocity as you press the track buttons. If you move a fader after going into the real-time screen, the velocity for that fader will be set from 1 to 127, depending on where the fader is positioned. The fader at the halfway mark has a velocity of approximately 60, and at unity is around 100. Otherwise, when the faders are untouched, the velocity is set to 127. Press the play button to begin creating a pattern. Real-time recording starts after a 1 measure count-in. You can temporarily change the drum kit while you are recording using the kit option at the top left of screen. If you want to audition the sounds before committing to them, you can use the F2 rehearsal function. With rehearsal on, you can hear and play the drums, but they won't be recorded to the pattern. Once you've finished rehearsing, set it to off and then add the drums to the pattern as it loops. Each subsequent loop will add new drums to the previous ones. You also have the option to quantize the drums as their input. To enable this, use the cursor and highlight the quantization value and use the time value wheel to adjust it. The setting ranges from a quarter note through to a 30-second note triplet. Setting it to off disables quantization. You can change the setting at any time during recording and apply different settings to different drums. This setting will be retained even across other songs until you change it. If you want to erase any drums from the pattern, switch the F3 erase function to on. With erase on, hold the track button corresponding to the sound you want to erase. Any of the drum sounds playing while you hold the track button will be erased. Press F3 again to turn erase off. Press stop when you finish creating the new pattern. Whenever a pattern has been edited, the pattern number is replaced with temp to indicate that it's being stored in temporary memory. The pattern needs to be saved to keep any changes. You can add a name below the pattern number using the cursor and time value wheel. If you switch from a temp pattern to another one without saving, all the changes may be lost. As a safeguard against doing this accidentally, the BR1600 will show the pattern in a white box instead of the usual black. At this point, the edited pattern is still in memory and is not lost. Pushing the exit button will cancel loading and return back to the edited and unsaved pattern. If you do want to load a new pattern, press the enter button to confirm and the new pattern loads. It then reverts to being highlighted in black and all the edits you made to the previous pattern are disregarded. To store any changes, press the F4 write button. Use the time value wheel to select a location to save the new pattern. The current location is shown as default, so you only need to change this if you want to save to a different location. Press F4 go to save the pattern. To create a new pattern in step mode, press the F4 edit button from the edit screen and select a new empty pattern. Press the F2 step button. This takes you to the step recording screen. Current indicates the current input position in measures, beats, and clock units. The abbreviated names of the drums are shown on the left and correspond as follows. Press the F2 or F3 res button to increase or decrease the input resolution and magnification of the recording grid. The resolution is noted at the top of the screen and can be set from quarter notes to 30-second note triplets. When set to off, its input is at its highest resolution and equates to 96 clock units per quarter note. Move the cursor to the location on the grid where you want to input a drum sound and use the time value wheel to add velocity. There are 5 steps available, increasing in velocity with each turn from 15 to 127. This can be fine-tuned later along with the drum sounds and locations using microscope. Use the fast forward and rewind transport buttons to advance the input position forward or backwards by 1 resolution unit. 0 moves the cursor back to the start of the pattern. You can also use the F1 current measure button and time value wheel to enter in a location. When working with multi-measure or high-resolution patterns, you can use the scroll buttons to move the display to the left or right. Use the cursor up and down buttons to scroll through the available drums. You can change the tempo or drum kit if you need to by pressing the F4 setup button. This can also be done while the pattern is playing. The current location will be highlighted as it plays through the pattern. Press stop when the pattern is complete and press exit to go back to the drum edit screen. Save the pattern to keep any of the edits you've made. Assuming the BR1600 has been updated to version 2, you can import up to 999 measures from a standard MIDI file. Prior to version 2, import was limited to just 8 measures. To import drums from a MIDI file, the file needs to be burnt to a CD formatted to ISO Level 2 Mode 1. Insert the disc into the BR1600 and press the CD Data Save Load button. Select Standard MIDI file and Import. A list of the MIDI files contained on the CD will be shown. Highlight the file you want to import and press F4 Select. Select the MIDI channel that contains the drums. This is normally channel 10 for a standard MIDI file. And set the type to drums. Choose a user or song pattern location to import to. Press the F4 Go button. Once complete, you should be able to hear the imported pattern. Regardless of how a pattern is created, you can continue editing or adding to it by going back into either real-time or step mode. This means you could start a pattern in step mode and take it into real-time mode to finish, or vice versa. The editing functions in both real-time and step modes are relatively limited, so if you need finer control over the timing and velocity, use Microscope. Microscope is used to make detail corrections and edits to drum patterns. From the drum edit screen, choose the pattern you want to edit and press F3 Microscope. This will display the drum data in list format. It shows the location within the measure of each drum sound, reference note, drum tone, velocity, and gate setting. Use the up and down cursor arrows to scroll through the list. Each event will sound as it's highlighted. The location field shows the measure, beat, and clock units from 0 to 95 per beat. To move an event, press F2 Move and use the time value wheel to dial in a new location. The drum sounds can be changed by highlighting either the reference note or drum tone and using the time value dial. Velocity is adjustable between a value of 1 and 127. The gate time is the length of time from when the note sounds to when it stops, but the setting has no effect when using the internal drums and is only relevant when controlling an external drum machine via MIDI. Pressing F1 Insert will insert an event matching the one highlighted and place it directly below the current event. F3 Delete will remove the current event from the list. Press play to hear the pattern and the events will be highlighted as they are played. F4 Setup allows you to change the tempo and drum kit for auditioning the pattern. This can also be done while the pattern is playing. If you find a preset pattern that is close to what you need, you can use it as a basis to build one of your own. Select the preset and make any edits in either real-time, step, or microscope mode. Preset patterns cannot be overwritten, so they need to be saved to either a user or song location once they've been edited. A good use case scenario for using the drums in pattern mode is if you're starting a new song. Select a pattern, tempo, and drum kit and record along to the drums to sketch out a song. Let's start a new song and set track 15 and 16 to use the built-in drums. We'll press the track arm button so it's lit so we can hear the drums and go into the rhythm edit screen. Pick a drum kit and set the tempo. Now we can choose a suitable pattern. Push the track arm button until it's flashing. Now the drums will only sound during playback and recording. You can now record audio tracks while playing along to the drum pattern. Using tracks from one of the demo songs as an example, this is how it sounds with a guide guitar and vocal played along with our drum pattern.
My fear is lost, and I can't feel. Eyes fade to black. This time it's real. Can't break the line that pulls me in. Can't take the pain of my past sins. I can take it
Once you have a structure defined for a song, you can get more creative with the drums by using arrangement mode. To create an arrangement, press the arrangement button so it's lit and then the edit button. This takes you to the arrangement edit screen. Move the cursor to the arrangement number and use the time value wheel to select one. By default, all the user and song arrangements are blank, so if you choose one of those, you won't hear anything even when you set track 15 and 16 to play. The simplest way to use an arrangement is to load one of the presets. There are 100 available in varying musical styles. The track 15 and 16 arm button has a similar function to how it works in pattern mode. When unlit, the rhythm arrangement won't sound at all, even when you press play. When flashing, the arrangement will sound in play and record mode only. And when lit, the pattern at the current location in the arrangement will play on repeat, even in stop mode. Push the track arm button until it stays lit. Set a tempo for the song using tap tempo, highlighting the BPM on screen, or via the F1 edit button. And choose a drum kit to use with the arrangement. The key shift and bass sounds relate to the bass sequencer, so we'll look at those in a future video. The metronome sound can be changed between click and beep if track 15 and 16 is set to use the metronome. To set the time signature for the song, press F3 beat map. Use the time value wheel to adjust and save the arrangement to keep the changes. Push the track arm button until it's flashing. Arrangements work in the same way as patterns in terms of saving and loading. Once edited, an arrangement is shown as temp, which needs to be saved in order to keep any changes. Switching to another arrangement highlights the new arrangement in a white box, which needs the enter button to be pushed to load it. Pressing exit cancels loading and returns to the currently edited and unsaved arrangement. Press 0 to go to the start of the song and press play. The rhythm arrangement will play through, changing pattern at the nominated bar locations. If you want to create an arrangement from scratch, choose one of the user or song locations. If the song structure is unique, save it to a song location. Otherwise, saving to a user location will make it available for use on any song. If you want to hear the drum patterns play while you are building the arrangement, push the track arm button until it's lit. Otherwise, leave it flashing. Press 0 to return to the start of the arrangement if it's not already. You can tell by looking at the current location at the top of the screen. Press the F4 drum button to go to the drum assembly screen. Select the measure where you want the first pattern to start. Highlight the pattern prefix and number and choose the first pattern. By default, it's inserted with a length of 1 bar. Highlight length and use the time value wheel to adjust it. The change in length is reflected in the graphic on the screen. Highlight measure and use the time value wheel or use the fast forward and rewind buttons to move the current location, shown with a small triangle, to the location where you want the next pattern to start. Highlight the pattern number and choose a new pattern. Continue adding patterns until the arrangement is done. Press play at any time to hear the recorded tracks played along with the arrangement. Make any adjustments you need and then save the arrangement. To modify a pattern, move the current location over the pattern you want to edit. If you want to change the pattern, highlight either the name or pattern number and use the time value wheel. Highlight the length field to adjust how many bars the pattern plays for. Increasing the length will push all the following patterns out to allow for it, while reducing the number has the opposite effect and all following patterns close in to fill the gap. To be able to reduce a multi-measure pattern down to a single measure, you must be positioned at the start of the first measure. Use the F1 Insert button to add an additional pattern partway through an arrangement. A single instance of the pattern is inserted and the following patterns are pushed out to suit. Highlight either the pattern name or number and use the time value wheel to change patterns. F2 Delete will remove the currently selected pattern and close the gap with the patterns that follow. F3 Erase will remove the currently selected pattern but leave an empty measure where the pattern was. F4 Clear All will remove all the drum patterns currently used in the arrangement. Press Exit when you're done to go back to the arrangement screen. Press F1 Edit to name and save the arrangement. You can also use F2 and F3 to copy and delete arrangements. If you're working on a more complex arrangement, you can use a tempo and beat map to vary the tempo and time signature of a song. A tempo map allows you to add tempo changes to a song on a measure-by-measure basis and is saved along with the arrangement. To make adjustments to the tempo, from the arrangement screen, press F1 Edit and select F2 Tempo Map. The tempo map screen shows a list of all the tempo changes within a song. Initially, there will only be a single entry, which reflects the fixed tempo set on the edit screen. This entry cannot be deleted and only the tempo field can be adjusted. To add a tempo change, press F1 New. Use the time value wheel to set the measure where the tempo change occurs. The tempo will persist until another tempo change is made. The screen on the right will show the name and number of the patterns in the arrangements as you scroll through the measures. Highlight the tempo and change with the time value wheel. Continue adding as many tempo changes as you need. You can have up to 50 per song. Use F4 Delete to remove a tempo change and press Exit when you're done. Save the arrangement using F4. Just be aware that if you adjust the tempo from the edit screen or by using the Tap Tempo button after you've created a tempo map, then all entries in the tempo map will be wiped and reset to a single tempo. There is no undo for this, so whenever you make a change to the tempo map, make sure that you save it straight away. The beat map allows you to set a time signature change on a measure-by-measure basis and is also saved along with the arrangement. To make adjustments to the time signature, from the arrangement screen, press F1 Edit and select F3 Beat Map. The beat map screen shows a list view of all the time signature changes within the song. Initially, there will only be the one entry, and this cannot be deleted, and only the beat field can be changed. To add a time signature change, press F1 New and use the time value wheel to set the measure where the time signature change occurs. This setting will persist until another time signature change is made. The screen on the right will show the name and number of the patterns in the arrangement as you scroll through the measures. Highlight Beat and adjust with the time value wheel. Continue adding as many changes as is required. You can have up to 50 changes per song. Use F4 Delete to remove an entry and press Exit when you're done. Save the arrangement and any changes to the beat map using F4. Let's continue with the example we used in pattern mode. After using pattern mode and adding some guide tracks, we now have a defined structure for the song which looks like this. We have a 3-bar intro, 8-bar verses, 16-bar choruses, as well as some bridges, a break, and an ending. Armed with a structure, we can now go ahead and make an arrangement. We'll create a new song arrangement. In arrangement mode, press the Edit button and select an empty song arrangement. Let's set the tempo. And the sounds for the drum kit. We'll leave the time signature at the default 4/4. Press Exit to go back to the edit screen and press the F4 drum button to go into the drum assembly screen. Press 0 to go to the start of the song if it's not already there. From the layout of the structure, the first pattern starts on bar 3, so we can use either the fast forward button or highlight the measure and use the time value wheel to advance to bar 3. For this example, we'll use the Rock 30 series of presets. 183 is a fill. Press fast forward to go to bar 4, where we change to a verse pattern. Roll the time value wheel forward and the pattern number for the adjacent measure will be displayed. We'll change it to 182. And the verse is 8 bars long, so we'll highlight length and extend it to 8 bars. Remember that you can also press play at any time to hear the audio tracks played along with the arrangement. Let's fast forward to the end of the verse at bar 12, and for the bridge we'll use pattern 184 for 8 bars. We'll leave an empty measure at bar 20 and add a fill to the next bar. As we're not located at the end of a measure, the pattern number defaults back to 001. Let's add pattern 185. The next bar is the start of verse 2 for 8 bars. And that's basically how it's done. Just continue adding patterns to complete the rest of the song. Once you're done, press Exit to go back to the edit screen. The arrangement is now shown as temp, so we need to save it. Press F1 Edit, press F4 to save and either accept the default current location or choose another. Press F4 Go to save the arrangement. Let's listen to the arrangement along with the guide guitar and vocal tracks.
My fear is lost, and I can feel eyes fade to black. This time it's real. Can't break the line that pulls me in. Can't take the pain of my past sins. I can't take it anymore. I'm broken.
We can also listen to an alternative drum arrangement that came with the song.
My fear is lost, and I can feel eyes fade to black. This time it's real. Can't break the line that pulls me in. Can't take the pain of my past sins. I can't take it anymore. I'm broken.
I hope that fills in a few gaps on how to use the built-in drums. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.